She was the fearless rebel Hollywood couldn't control, the Oscar-nominated powerhouse who vanished at the peak of her fame. But what really drove Debra Winger to walk away from the spotlight just as the world begged for more? Was it disillusionment, defiance, or something far more explosive lurking beneath the surface? The truth has been buried for decades, until now. What you're about to discover will change the way you see Hollywood. Forever. Before she was a name in lights, Debra Winger was just a girl named Mary, born on May 16, 1955 in Cleveland, Ohio. Her family called her Mary, a nod to Jewish tradition. But her parents named her Debra, inspired by the screen siren, Deborah Kerr. Two names, two identities. One tugging her toward tradition, the other whispering of the silver screen. That duality haunted her early years. When her family moved to California, she was surrounded by suburban calm. But something louder stirred within her, a burning urge to perform, to create, to escape the expected. Yet in her conservative home, acting wasn't a path, it was a fantasy. So she kept her dreams silent, rehearsing alone in front of a mirror, secretly memorizing scenes from old movies. That hidden passion became her lifeline. At just 15, Winger graduated high school and enrolled in college to study criminology, a safe path. But fate had other plans. While working at an amusement park, a freak accident changed everything. One moment she was riding on the back of a truck. The next, she was thrown violently to the ground. When she woke up, she couldn't see. She couldn't move one side of her body. A hemorrhage had robbed her of sight and mobility. Doctors offered little hope. But in the silence of that hospital room, Winger made a promise to herself. If I recover, I will give my life to acting. That vow became her lifeline. She didn't just heal, she defied every prognosis. Her sight returned, her body strengthened, and the moment she could walk again, she dropped out of college and charged headfirst into Hollywood. Not as a starry-eyed girl, but as someone who had faced darkness and chosen light. Her first roles were forgettable, fleeting appearances on television. In Wonder Woman, she played Diana's younger sister. But the fame didn't follow. Her first film? A low-budget, soft-core piece she'd rather forget. She never spoke of it publicly, and when asked, she dodged the question. It wasn't shame. It was defiance. That film wasn't her. She hadn't survived near paralysis to be reduced to a side note. Then came Urban Cowboy in 1980. The studio had their eyes set on others, Sissy Spacek, Michelle Pfeiffer. But when Debra walked into the audition, director James Bridges saw something no one else had. Raw, unfiltered power. He went so far as to threaten to quit unless she was cast. That's the kind of presence Winger brought. And when the film hit theaters, she was electric. Paired with John Travolta, she didn't just light up the screen, she burned through it. Audiences couldn't look away. Debra Winger had arrived. But with that stardom came a new kind of battle. Hollywood loved her talent, but feared her honesty. She was bold, fiercely intelligent, and refused to play by the industry's unwritten rules. She wasn't here to charm producers or play nice on set. She was here to act. Her performances were visceral, hauntingly real, and she poured every part of herself into each role. But the same fire that made her brilliant also made her controversial. She wasn't afraid to speak up, and Hollywood, at the time, wasn't ready for a woman like her. By 1982, Winger was cast in An Officer and a Gentleman. The film became a cultural phenomenon. That final scene, Richard Gere lifting her in his arms, etched into movie history. But off-camera, it was a battlefield. Winger and Gere clashed so bitterly that even their co-stars couldn't bridge the divide. She once said working with him was like acting opposite a brick wall. No spark, no connection, just tension. Yet despite the chaos, the performance earned her an Oscar nomination and a reputation. She was labeled difficult, a word often used to silence women who refuse to play submissive. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. At the height of her fame, Winger could have cashed in. Endorsements, appearances, red carpet glitz. But she never cared for the flash. She was one of the few Hollywood icons who never bought into the illusion. While other stars flaunted Bentleys and Bugattis, Winger drove modest cars, kept a low profile, and focused on craft over status. Her idea of luxury wasn't flaunting wealth, it was owning her time. Even so, she wasn't blind to the importance of financial strategy. She invested early in real estate, quietly acquiring properties in California and upstate New York. Her preference for privacy extended to her lifestyle. No private jets, no paparazzi-friendly getaways, just grounded living. When it came to timepieces, she was spotted wearing vintage Cartiers and classic Omega watches, elegant, understated, and timeless, much like her career. Unlike many in the industry, she protected her legacy with carefully structured insurance policies, including coverage for long-term disability and career loss. Lessons learned from her near-paralyzing accident. Winger didn't gamble her wealth on risky ventures. Instead, she funneled her earnings into sustainable portfolios, including indie film productions and low-risk mutual funds. She collaborated on a few boutique creative projects, but never chased the glitzy, high-risk business deals that led other stars into financial ruin. Her motto? Build slow, protect what matters. And that's what kept her grounded. Just when everyone thought Winger was at her peak, she walked away. No farewell tour, no media circus. She disappeared, leaving Hollywood and the world wondering why. Was it burnout? A final act of defiance? Or something deeper? When two Hollywood storms collided on the set of Terms of Endearment in 1983, the result wasn't just cinematic gold, it was an explosion of raw personalities. Debra Winger and Shirley MacLaine weren't co-stars. They were opposing forces. MacLaine, the seasoned icon of old Hollywood with decades of experience and a sharp, unwavering presence, found herself face-to-face with Winger, a rebel of a new era, unpredictable and unfiltered. What unfolded wasn't just tension, it was open warfare. They argued over everything: tone, delivery, timing, even professionalism. One infamous moment turned into legend. Winger, in a moment of pure defiance, reportedly made a crude joke on set, leaving MacLaine stunned. That wasn't just rebellion. It was Winger's way of marking territory. Despite the chaos, Terms of Endearment soared. It was nominated for 5 Academy Awards. Winger's performance earned her a second Oscar nomination, yet it was MacLaine who won. And as she stood on stage, clenching her golden statue and shouting, "I deserve this," the room froze. Was it a thank you, or a pointed jab at her on-screen and off-screen rival? That moment captured the raw reality of Hollywood's brutal undercurrents. It rewards the bold, but only to a point. While the world applauded her fiery talent, Winger was secretly shaping another legend. Few know that she lent her voice, uncredited, to Steven Spielberg's E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Yes, the voice that touched millions was hers. Spielberg asked her to bring a spark to the alien's voice, and she delivered. But she never publicly embraced it. Was it humility, or a refusal to let her name be tied to something invisible? That was Winger in a nutshell: brilliant, elusive, and always walking the line between fame and freedom. Winger wasn't playing by the industry's rules. She repeatedly turned down blockbuster scripts. Whispers spread. Some blamed a relationship with Nebraska's Governor Bob Kerrey for her disappearing act. Others pointed to health issues. But none of it could be confirmed. All we knew was that Winger was marching to a beat no one else could hear. Through the early 90s, she delivered acclaimed performances in The Sheltering Sky and Shadowlands, earning a 3rd Oscar nod. But the applause grew quieter. The phone rang less. Hollywood, always hungry for the next star, didn't know what to do with someone who wouldn't conform. And then she vanished. In 1995, without fanfare, she left Hollywood. No controversy, no scandal, just silence. Viewers were stunned. How could someone at the top of her game, an actress who'd once shaken the very foundation of the industry, just disappear? It wasn't a fall, it was a retreat. But behind that retreat was a personal life marked by both heartbreak and healing. Her first marriage to actor Timothy Hutton wasn't your typical Hollywood romance. It was fate interrupted. She first noticed him in 1981, during his Oscar win for Ordinary People. Something about him struck a chord. But it wasn't until 1983 that their paths truly crossed, during auditions for a film that never happened. From that point on, they were tethered by a strange cosmic pull. Every 6 months, they'd run into each other. Sparks would fly, then vanish. Finally, on New Year's Eve 1986, at a charity event she hosted, the connection finally held. They married 3 months later. But joy turned quickly. On their wedding night, Winger became pregnant, and then suffered a devastating miscarriage. The grief cut deep. She later gave birth to their son, Noah, in 1987, but the cracks were already showing. Winger's fire clashed with Hutton's introspective calm. Add to that her family's disapproval, especially from her devout Orthodox Jewish grandmother who rejected the union, and the marriage crumbled. By 1988, they had separated. In 1990, they divorced. But unlike many celebrity splits, theirs held a rare grace. They remained close, even spending holidays together years later. After the emotional wreckage of her first marriage, Winger wasn't looking for fireworks. She was looking for stillness. She found it with actor-director Arliss Howard. They met on the set of Wilder Napalm in 1993. It wasn't love at first sight. It was peace at first glance. Howard wasn't a heartthrob or Hollywood royalty, but he offered her something she hadn't known in years: calm. They married in 1996 and had a son, Gideon, the following year. Winger also became a stepmother to Howard's son from a previous marriage. Their bond wasn't perfect, but it was steady. As Winger once said, "Happiness is fleeting, but I believe I chose the right person." While her love life was stabilizing, her professional life had changed forever. Winger was no longer interested in roles that didn't challenge her. "If I'm not excited, I'd rather do nothing," she said. Hollywood tried to box her in, but she refused. She didn't want to be another actress collecting paychecks for roles that dulled her spark. The roles became repetitive, the scripts uninspired. And one day, standing in the middle of a green Irish field during a quiet vacation with Howard, Winger realized she was done. Not just with a film, but with the whole machine. She returned to the US, packed up her Los Angeles life, and moved to a farm in New York. No press release, no farewell tour, just silence. What did she trade the cameras for? A quieter life, but not a modest one. While Winger retreated from the public eye, her investments quietly grew. With an estimated net worth today of around $16 million, she's far from forgotten. In her prime, her film earnings were substantial, with 7-figure paychecks in the late 80s and early 90s. A chunk of her fortune went into real estate, including a countryside estate in upstate New York valued at $3.2 million, complete with private trails, a guest cottage, and a vineyard plot. She's also known to have invested in boutique eco-resorts and wellness properties abroad, diversifying her income far beyond acting. Her taste for understated luxury shows in her possessions too. Winger's collection includes a rare 1967 Jaguar E-Type convertible and a sleek black Tesla Model S. On her wrist, a classic Cartier Tank Française, timeless, elegant, and quietly expensive. No need for diamonds the size of golf balls. Winger's style whispers rather than shouts. While she doesn't own a private jet, she's been known to charter eco-friendly flights, preferring sustainability over opulence. Hollywood tried to define her, but she escaped the mold. Debra Winger didn't burn out. She walked away. And in doing so, she left behind a story more mysterious and compelling than most characters she ever played. But what truly happened after she vanished from the screen? What has she been hiding all these years? And what's about to be revealed? Her post-Hollywood life turned into a study in intentional living. No more extravagant premieres or photo ops. Instead, she cultivated simplicity. Days in her garden, evenings with her family, a rare kind of normalcy for someone once called difficult by industry giants. But here's the twist. Her influence only grew stronger the further she stepped away. That's the paradox of true icons. Even in absence, they command attention. It wasn't retirement. It was quiet resistance. A different kind of fame that comes from refusing to play by the rules. One of the most shocking truths about Winger's journey is that, despite walking away from massive paychecks and global stardom, her financial life didn't collapse. In fact, it thrived. At the peak of her career in the late 80s, Winger had amassed a net worth close to $15 million, largely fueled by hits like An Officer and a Gentleman and Terms of Endearment. While she wasn't chasing blockbuster roles in the 2000s, her investments matured. Real estate played a central role. She holds multiple properties, including a ranch-style home in New Mexico, valued at around $2.4 million, and a cottage in upstate New York nestled on over 20 acres of land, giving her the privacy and serenity she long craved. These aren't just properties, they're sanctuaries. And while she might not be cruising around in Bugattis or flaunting diamond watches on social media, don't mistake her for out of touch. Winger owns a classic 1969 Mercedes-Benz SL, a nod to timeless elegance. Her watch collection is discreet but refined. Vintage Patek Philippe and Cartier tank models speak to her appreciation for craftsmanship over flash. These aren't purchases for status. They're quiet symbols of a life curated, not consumed. Her business sense is just as understated. Winger holds stakes in several eco-conscious and wellness-focused brands, including a sustainable skincare company that quietly grew in value during the green boom of the early 2020s. She's also invested in a boutique production company that develops indie films and documentaries championing female voices. A full-circle moment for someone who once fought to be heard in rooms filled with silence. This strategic shift into storytelling from behind the scenes shows Winger never really left the industry. She just moved to a seat with more power and less spotlight. Now here's the hook you didn't see coming. Winger's insurance portfolio reveals the depth of her foresight. She's long carried policies tailored not just to protect her assets, but to safeguard her creative future. Career protection insurance, common among high-level performers, allowed her the freedom to say no to projects without fearing financial ruin. In addition, she's invested heavily in health and long-term care coverage, planning not for an early exit, but for a long, sustainable life outside the glare of studio lights. That kind of planning isn't glamorous, but it's genius. And it's a lesson many younger stars are only now starting to learn. Which brings us to one of the most dramatic developments: how Winger's career choices are finally being recognized not as stubbornness, but strategy. Hollywood tried to erase her by labeling her difficult. But now, in a post-Me Too world, her refusal to accept demeaning roles or tolerate disrespect is seen as trailblazing. She was decades ahead of her time. The younger generation, actresses like Florence Pugh and Zendaya, cite her as an influence, not just for her roles, but for her refusal to conform. In an age where fame often comes wrapped in scandal, Winger's story hits different. She didn't implode, she didn't compromise, she just left. And now she's being called back, not by casting directors, but by culture itself, which has finally caught up to her values. That's power you can't fake. Her influence even stretches into the unexpected. In 2024, the film Drive Away Dolls premiered in New York, and when Winger appeared, the crowd gasped. Not because of glamour, but because of transformation. With her natural silver curls, no makeup face, and thick-rimmed glasses, she looked nothing like the ingenue from the 80s. And yet she radiated something most celebrities can't buy. So, was Debra Winger really the rebel Hollywood made her out to be? Or was she simply the first to see through the illusion and choose a different kind of freedom? One that's measured not in red carpet appearances or magazine covers, but in self-respect, artistic control, and a wealth that goes far beyond dollars. Let us know what you think in the comments. And if this story surprised you, buckle up. We've got more untold Hollywood truths coming your way. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that pull back the curtain.